This is DW News Africa. Coming up on the show, how Africa has become the US's offshore detention center for unwanted migrants. A growing number of people deported from the US are being sent to countries in Africa. They include refugees and asylum seekers. The mass deportations are part of a wide and unprecedented crackdown on immigration by the Trump administration. Also on the show, the children in southeastern Nigeria forced to live on the streets because their families have accused them of being witches. They are being further victimized by local law enforcement officers.
You cannot tie them. You can't tie them. You cannot tie children. What do you mean?
Hello, I'm Mhundwa. Welcome to the program. Liberia has said it will receive up to 1,200 foreign nationals deported from the US. The deportees will include Africans as well as people from South America and the Caribbean. This is one of the largest transfers of people to a third country since the Trump administration began carrying out mass deportations. Now, as part of an unprecedented crackdown on immigration, the US government has been ending protection status given to refugees and asylum seekers, as well as immigrants, paving the way for people to be removed from the US. Now, in order to carry out the deportations, the US has signed bilateral agreements with a number of third countries. Now, the details of the deals have generally not been made public, but it is reported the Trump administration has coerced these countries with threats of visa bans, tariffs and other trade restrictions, and cuts to aid and funding for health and other key sectors. Now, 14 African countries have signed these deals. They include Burundi, Cameroon, Cape Verde, the Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eswatini, Ghana, Liberia, Libya, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, South Sudan, and Uganda. In a moment, I'll be talking to a litigator working on behalf of some of the deportees. But first, this report from DW correspondent Blaise Eyong in Cameroon. He met asylum seekers deported from the US who told him about the ordeal they experienced.
These three women are members of Ghana's LGBTQ+ community who fled persecution in their homeland and arrived in the US in 2024. Immigration took them into custody, and they were granted legal protection that prevented US authorities from sending them back to Ghana. Instead, they were deported to Cameroon this January. Zainab, not her real name, recounts how she was put on a plane, shackled and in chains.
You couldn't move, and it felt like we had committed some kind of crime, like example, terrorism. And I felt like a terrorist because, I mean, what on earth did I do to be shackled like that? Both hands and feet. I can't even move. I just came to the United States for safety. I didn't expect that at all.
Zainab is among 36 migrants who've been deported from the US to Cameroon as part of Trump's controversial third country deportation agreement. So far, none of them have any ties to Cameroon.
We are not criminals. We entered America for us to be safe. If you were safe in our country, we don't believe you'll go to America to go and seek asylum. And this is so heartbreaking because you can't treat human beings like this. We are treated like we are slaves. We don't have life anymore. And Cameroon is not a safe country.
For these migrants, they cannot return to their home countries because they fear for their lives. Here in Cameroon, they are also not welcome. Faced with this dilemma, many simply do not know what to do. For the first 2 months, the deportees were detained in a government compound in Cameroon's capital, Yaoundé. They were only allowed out after they went on a hunger strike. Even now, though they can go out, they have to be back by sundown. They are not allowed to work, and their asylum request has not yet been approved. Fru Joseph is their lawyer.
You cannot send somebody to harm that they're fleeing from. And so that's the concern with this special group of people, because they're not only vulnerable, they are doubly victimized because they're running away from a country that has persecuted them, and then now they're being sent to a country they do not know that still has the possibility of persecuting them. That makes it even doubly dangerous.
Since President Donald Trump returned to the White House, his administration has deported thousands of migrants. The details of the agreement between Cameroon and the U.S. remain secret. But according to a New York Times investigation, Washington withheld a $30 million payment to the UN Refugee Agency in Cameroon, only releasing it after the country agreed to accept deportees. Evis Ngolengole is a member of Cameroon's ruling party and a former minister.
As friends and as good partners, if America has the need to deport some that it seeks to deport and wants to pass through Cameroonian territory, in a relationship of partnership of mutual respect, Cameroon has no reason to say, no, my borders are closed. No, because the relationship between the two countries is based on the principles of open borders, no frontier.
As night falls in Yaoundé, these deportees are once again about to spend another night full of uncertainty.
I'd absolutely have no one to rely on in this country. It's very terrifying.
With countries like Cameroon willing to take in deportees from the US, more people are expected to find themselves stuck in a land they never wanted to be in.
Now, in an update to the story, Cameroon is now seeking to send Zainab and the other deportees back to their countries of origin. Lawyers representing them have started legal proceedings to stop the Cameroonian government from repatriating them to their home countries, where they say their lives are in danger. But now, for more on the deportation agreements the US has struck with countries in Africa, we've invited Beatrice Njeri from the Global Strategic Litigation Council. This is an international NGO that specializes in refugee and migrant rights. Welcome to DW News Africa, Beatrice. So, as we're hearing, Cameroon now wants to send the deportees from the US back to their countries of origin. What do the agreements signed with the US say about whether or not countries like Cameroon have to keep the deportees that they've accepted from the US?
Okay, I'd like to begin by saying that most of the agreements we have had access to in their short forms are very vague in the responsibilities of the receiving countries, and we do not have full access of the agreements. These agreements are also kept very secret from the public eye, and therefore we do not know what commitments the receiving countries have made to the US with regards to retaining or sending the people received onwards.
Understood. Now, your organization has made an intervention in Equatorial Guinea. Can you tell us about that case and the avenues that you are pursuing?
In June, we filed a case against the state of Equatorial Guinea at the African Commission. This is because we felt we had the lawyers in Equatorial Guinea, together with the other co-counsel organizations that we're collaborating with, we felt that we had exhausted all the possible domestic remedies, legal remedies possible in Equatorial Guinea, and therefore we had no option but to move to the African Commission in order to seek protection and justice for the people who are some who are still currently detained in Equatorial Guinea, and some who had then been refoulement or returned back to countries where they face danger.
Yeah, Beatrice, you mentioned that you're intervening because people are detained essentially, and that really prompts my next question. Why are the deportees, people who are not criminals, being detained when they arrive in the third countries that they've been deported to from the US? Is this even legal?
Absolutely not legal. It is a blatant violation of international human rights law. These are people who have protections in their country, in the US. They were fleeing from danger in their country, from their countries of origin. And most of the receiving countries had committed in the few agreements to respect their human rights. So what they are doing upon receipt, then detaining them under heavy military guard or in maximum prison facilities is, of course, a violation of their human rights and is not legal. We do not know why these receiving countries have chosen this mode of dealing with the people who have they received. and the detention conditions are horrible in most of these countries, and it is also the conduit with which they use to intimidate, frustrate, and harass the people detained in order to force them to agree to returning to their countries of origin where they may face danger.
Oh, Beatrice, can you say a little bit more about those conditions of detention?
For example, in Equatorial Guinea, we have people who have been detained there for 9 months since November, others about 7 months beginning January. And what we have heard from our interactions with these detainees who we speak to on various occasions quite regularly is that they do not receive adequate food, they do not have enough personal hygiene products, including toothbrushes, toothpaste, and even basic hygiene products, no sanitary products for women. And the Equatorial Guinea government, or the people who are guarding them at the hotel, who they believe to be police officers, keep telling them that they're not the responsibility of Equatorial Guinea, that they were brought here by the US, and thus the US should take responsibility for whatever they need. We have also seen high levels of medical neglect. They have various medical needs that have been neglected by, for example, the Equatorial Guinea authorities. There are people who have been received and had limited supply of medicines. Some have conditions varying from bipolar to HIV infections, diabetes, hypertensive people with high blood pressure challenges, and all these people have not received adequate treatment.
Yeah, Beatrice, I guess if we're sort of taking a step back at this, and you work in this space, that's why I'm prompted to ask you the question. Not everybody, but a bulk of the people that are being deported by the United States or from the United States do happen to be Africans. And if, you know, a significant amount of the countries that have signed up to these partnerships with the United States are African countries, doesn't it sort of beg the question then about whether or not we in Africa should be looking at what we're doing in terms of how the continent is receiving fellow Africans, and perhaps what can be done to accept people who are being denied the right to stay in the United States and in other Western countries. We have to point out that in Europe as well, immigration policy, asylum policy is being severely restricted.
Africa already shoulders the greater responsibility of protection of asylum seekers. We do know from UNHCR statistics that African countries host about 65 to 70% of people seeking asylum or people who are seeking asylum go to their neighboring countries. So there's a good reason that the 30% also are seeking refuge in countries other than Africa. And it is their right to do so. People have a right to seek asylum where they feel safest, as well as the agency of asylum seekers to seek safety where they feel they would mostly be safe. There are, for example, groups of African asylum seekers who may not feel safe in any African country. For example, people who are LGBT, have LGBT claims or have fled their countries because of LGBT persecution would find it hard to find safety in any other African country, because most of the other African countries have same level of danger, if not worse, than their countries. The other reason is that apart from that, Western countries are not shouldering their responsibility or their level of shared responsibility for this, for refugee protection, basically. And that burden has been left heavily on the global south, while it should be equally shared. And so we are seeing this externalization agreements as a form of for example, rewriting the protection laws and system and how it has worked. The Global Compact on Refugees does prescribe how shared responsibility ought to look like, and it is not by proximity only, that refugees should not only seek protection by proximity to countries. Africa also has its own challenges, and we do think that the Western countries should bear more responsibility on the protection of asylum seekers, because they have created this problem through, perhaps if you go like deeper into historical or wider exploration, so through colonization, through fueling of conflict of wars in the Gulf countries, Sudan, etc. So there is greater responsibility for why people are being forcibly displaced in the past on, and that responsibility should be borne by the Western countries because they have instigated it and therefore should also bear the responsibility of protecting people.
All right, that's Beatrice and Jerry from the Global Strategic Litigation Council. We appreciate your insights, Beatrice. Thanks very much. Our next story is in Calabar, the capital of Cross River State in southeastern Nigeria. The state is home to thousands of children living on the streets, many of them because they've been chased away from home after being accused of witchcraft. Now, in March this year, this video purportedly showing officers from a local law enforcement task force violently abusing a group of children went viral. Listen to a bystander calling out the officers for how they are handling the children.
You cannot tie them. You can't tie them. You cannot tie children. What do you mean? The same way you're tying a horse is how you're tying children. You're beating children with a cutlass. For what?
Our reporter spoke to one of the children who were in that video. He told her the task force officers beat and threatened them.
The task force's white minibuses chased us. They caught me and another boy, 5 of us in total. They tied us up and started beating us with a machete. There was a rope used to tie goats, and they tied us with it. It was painful. They told us they would throw us into the river.
A representative from a local youth-led NGO that rescues street children told DW that she and a colleague were also assaulted by the task force officers when they tried to intervene on behalf of the children.
I mean, and in the course of this work still, we were assaulted. I was dealt a slap across the face. I was dragged by a member of the task force still. A colleague of mine was given a punch on the face.
Now, the children were held by the task force officers for about 2 hours before they were released into the care of a local NGO called Street Priests. Our reporter has sought a response from the task force on the incident, but all the requests for comment have gone unanswered. Now, despite the public outrage that followed the video being released, the officers from the task force reportedly continue to harass street children in Cross River State. Now, but there is hope for these children. Through the help of NGOs like Street Priests, some of them have been able to get off the streets. Our correspondent met a former street child who's now become a sought-after DJ in Calabar.
This is Bogobiri, an area in Calabar, home to dozens of street children. Many of them were chased away by their families. I met Daniel, who spent about 6 years of his life here. This is where he went when he needed shelter.
So we got out that we're all, maybe if there is heat or running away from, how is it called?
Police, task force.
Those operations, Colombo, they know me. Is that better? See, stay inside that place to cook.
To cook?
Yeah.
He was abused by his father and was forced to leave his home.
My dad was actually maltreating me by using machete on me. He wanted to cut my ear with the machete. So at some point, I was able to use my hands to block it.
The street turned into his refuge, but life didn't get easier.
It is tough in there. They will slap you, they will hit you, they will stab you.
Against all odds, Daniel never gave up on his big dreams and continued to go to school. And when he met Street Priests, he was finally able to build a different life. They helped him to get off the street, and that allowed him to pursue his dream and become one of Calabar's most electrifying DJs.
It feels like a dream now. 6 days ago, I was on the street, but now I'm on day now. God is good.
Daniel often returns to the street, hoping to act as a role model for those who remain.
I want to inspire them that each and every one of them can also leave the street just as I do. I just want to let them know that everything is possible.
One of these children told me off camera that he believes Daniel. Like him, he wants to leave the street and become an engineer.
I want to let them know that this is not your place. This is not your house. This is not your home. You can actually leave the streets and become something better.
I spoke to a child advocate and human rights lawyer in Calabar, James Ebor. I began by asking him if anyone has been held accountable since the video of the street children allegedly being abused by members of the task force in Calabar went viral.
We have very weak institutions in Nigeria where usually police don't investigate any crime unless either the government shows interest or powerful individuals are pushing it, or even the media keeps talking about it. Like in this case, we raised the alarm. The Attorney General, called the task force to order, and nothing was done. Remember, this task force, the police provide security for this task force. We've been trying to educate the police and members of the public about the rights of these children, vulnerable children in street situation.
Yeah.
The social welfare services, in fact, in Nigeria, as you know, social welfare services are not really available.
Right.
So these children are left to themselves to, survive. And most times it is survival that brings them in conflict with the security agencies or the law.
Mr. Ebor,
So
let's just take a step back to why these children are on the streets in the first place. Can you tell us specifically about some of the troubling superstitions that have seen families, as is reported, chase their children away from home, accusing them of witchcraft?
Of course, that is one of the reasons, but not the only reasons. Our survey, we partnered with UNICEF in 2018 to do a head count of the street children. We profiled all the street children. We got about 318 street children then. And our interviews with them revealed that majority of them are street kids because on account of witchcraft branding, but not all of them. And one of the people promoting these very terrible superstitions are religious bodies, pastors, evangelists, and apostles, promoting the belief in witches and wizards. This, with the kind of economy we have and with the kind of health issues are where most of our governments are not responsible, pushes them to these belief systems. And most times they resolve their poverty, unemployment, they excuse the spirits. And most times vulnerable children are the primary targets. Autistic children, children who have lost their two parents or one parent and they are potentially exposed to living with uncles or relatives. So the religious charlatans, in order to, promote their trade, they sell fear by, targeting these children.
One of the things that I wanted to discuss with you particularly about is how the local government in the state can do better in responding to the situation of particularly the children living on the streets, vulnerable children who need protection.
We don't have functional local government systems. Let nobody lie to you. We don't have a functional local government system. The local government system is running to pay salaries to some workers who are actually not working. You go to the local government councils across the country, you see that there's no activity happening there. Even the social welfare offices in these local governments are not functional. We are working with partners to see how this can work. But you see, partners will not give you money. Government has to be more responsible. Nigeria has a lot of money to fund institutions and strengthen institutions. The challenge we have is that our institutions are broken. Even the police is poorly funded. Government money is for sharing. Oftentimes, no releases to fund the system that should be providing social services to vulnerable children in street situations. That is the challenge. Corruption is our biggest threat. It affects our health system, it affects our social services, it affects everything of our lives.
Well, Mr. James Ibo, we really appreciate your insights there in letting us in terms of the challenges that street children are exposed to in Cross River states. We appreciate your insights, sir.
Thank you very much.
That's our program. Bye-bye.